prophet Jeremiah knew what it meant to struggle. You see, Israel was in exile. They were living in the pain of their present. They were longing for a future that seemed out of reach.
I remember when I first came to Jesus in Trinity Church, it was at a dark point in my life.
So the year 2022, probably in the month of February, was really difficult for me.
I was diagnosed when I was 10 with a skin, muscle, and joint disease that doubles as an autoimmune disease. It's called scleroderma. It was in this context that he spoke these powerful words. He said, "I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss, yet I still dare to hope."
I was rarely coming to church, rarely, paying attention or being intentional with my relationship with Christ. My wife was really setting a foundation for me to come in, not knowing that I would need it at a desperate point in my life. When my wife passed away, December 6, 2018, and that was a moment of unexpectancy. It was something that we weren't prepared for.
I was already living here for a year. I was 19 years old, and I was going through school, and I remember just like almost purposefully not talking to anybody and not having friendships because I didn't have the energy to give anything to anybody. Where I would go home and eat dinner as fast as I could and then just go to bed at like 5 p.m. just so that way the day was over. I didn't really realize what was happening until I was already in it, and I really realized that I was suffering from depression.
And when I was about 19, I had my first flare-up. I was going into the doctor. It was really difficult for me to walk around, and I was not able to go upstairs, and it was just really difficult for me to perform normal tasks.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any answers. Again, this was all sudden. Prior to this in my life, I grew up with God in my life, but I don't think I had my life in God's life.
It felt like I was sitting in a hole that I didn't even want to crawl out of. And it felt like I was screaming and nobody was responding.
As a dancer, my body is my career, and to lose that, to lose control of that, to lose my independence was very difficult. And honestly, nobody could find an answer. And I think that was the hardest part, is I went in looking for an answer and I didn't have one.
There's something so powerful about that 3-letter word, yet. You see, perhaps you haven't seen the miracle, yet we still keep the faith. Maybe you haven't arrived at your destination, yet we still dare to dream. You may be in the middle of your struggle, yet we still dare to hope.
Nobody was prepared for this, but I knew that God was. So I knew that no place else can help me but coming to Trinity. So I went there the first Sunday after she passed. It wasn't even a full week. And once I entered through the doors, it wasn't like I was a stranger there. Open arms, strength.
When I got to probably my lowest point, I just broke down on my studio floor, and I just looked up and I'm like, Lord, why are you doing this to me? And it was almost audible when he spoke to me, and he said, "You've been placing too much priority and importance on the people that I've placed in your life. So I've removed them so you can focus on who you're supposed to be putting priority on." I realized that I don't want anything, and I don't want any relationship that doesn't have the Lord at the center of it.
I remember thinking in like my darkest moment, I cannot do this. I feel so alone, and I don't know how I'm gonna make it out of this. I was laying there, hands clenched, and as I was laying there, I felt the word alone reappear in my mind as it did so many times before, and he met me in that. And in that moment, I think he revealed to me that alone was never meant to be a state of being for me, but that it was the end of the unfinished sentence. God, I can't do this alone. And that was kind of the turning point for me.
Jeremiah's words remind us that even in the darkest moments, God's promises remain. If God gives a promise, He will deliver. If He starts a good work, He'll complete it. And if God calls you to it, He will bring you through it. Jeremiah's hope wasn't based on what he saw around him, but on the God he knew to be faithful.
What got me through those moments was knowing that I wasn't dealing with it alone, that God was also taking a lot of that pain with me. He was experiencing those moments with me. But I also believe in the power of community. I believe in the power of holding, accountability for others in your life. So I was able to create friendships, spend time outside of church, friends, community that pray for me, that pray around me.
I was in a season of my life where I was looking for a new church, and I reached out to an acquaintance of mine. I looked through some of the churches that she followed, and I saw that Trinity was one of them. As soon as I walked in, it was just like a wave of warmth fell up on me. I saw people that really loved the Lord and just honored the Lord, and I just knew I was home.
2 weeks after I had that encounter with God where He really met me, that was my birthday, and it was the first time that I came to Trinity. And I remember thinking, I feel like I'm home. I feel like these are my people. I feel like I knew them already.
What began as a small seed of faith has grown because the vision was never just about us. It's always been about leading others to the one who changes everything. We believe that if people could encounter the faithful love of Jesus, it would unlock a movement that would ripple through every aspect of life, transforming hearts and cities alike. That's why this year we're declaring in 2025 that God is not done yet.
The amount of things that I've been able to do, that God's given me victory in, that God's allowed in my life, and I'm a walking miracle. There's not a cure yet. And if I believe that everything that the Word says about God is true, if I believe that He's sovereign, if I believe that He's good, if I believe that He's working things together, then I believe that this is not for nothing. That I believe that the suffering, the pain, is preparation for what I will face in the future.
His promises are true, and His vision for us, it's still unfolding. We believe still that the best is yet to come. We press forward full of hope because with God, we still dare to hope. And that's the power of yet.